You stand before the trail boss, a man who commands this entire enterprise, not with a loud voice, but with a quiet, assessing gaze that seems to weigh your very soul. His face is a roadmap of sun and wind, his authority absolute and unquestioned. He looks you over, a young man, barely out of your teens, with hands that are not yet calloused enough. He asks you no questions. He simply nods, a barely perceptible motion, and tells the cook to add your name to the roll. You are now a cowboy. You will earn $25 a month, a wage that feels impossibly small for the journey ahead. The trail boss, you learn, earns $125, a king's ransom by comparison, and the cook, the surly monarch of the chuckwagon, earns a respectable $60. There is a hierarchy here, as rigid and unyielding as the land itself. At the top is the trail boss. Below him, the cook. Then come the seasoned hands, the point and swing riders, men who know the country and the cattle. And then, at the very bottom, there is you. An older cowboy, his face as cracked and dry as a riverbed in a drought, ambles over. He tells you your position. You are to be a drag rider. He says it without pity, as a simple statement of fact. You will ride at the very back of the herd, behind the thousands of cattle, pushing forward the stragglers, the weak, the slow, and the lame. It is, he explains, the most unpleasant, exhausting, and dust-choked job on the entire drive, a position reserved for the greenhorns, the boys who have yet to prove their worth. Your world will be a perpetual cloud of fine, gritty dust, kicked up by 10,000 hooves, a dust that will coat your clothes, your skin, your hair, and the inside of your throat. It is a job of insufferable misery. Then the moment comes. The sun is just beginning to crest the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The trail boss rides to the front of the herd, raises his hand, and calls out the words that set your new life in motion. Head him up, move him out. There is a low rumble, a collective groan from the great mass of animals. It begins to move. Slowly at first, then with a gathering momentum, a river of mottled hides and wickedly sharp horns begins to flow north. The sound is immense, a continuous lowing and shuffling that fills the air. The smell is thick, a potent mix of dust, dry grass, and the warm animal scent of the herd. You spur your horse, a creature as new to you as this life, and fall into your position at the rear. The great cloud of dust rises to meet you, swallowing you whole. Your journey has begun, not at the glorious head of the column, but in the choking, blinding grit of its wake. You are a drag rider, and for the next 1,000 miles, this dust will be your constant companion, your food, your air, your entire world. The days bleed into one another, each governed by the same relentless rhythm, a cycle of sun and dust and exhaustion. Your life revolves around two fixed points, the ever-moving herd and the steadfast chuckwagon. The wagon, you quickly learn, is the heart of the outfit, the singular point of order in a world of chaos. Its master, the cook, is a man whose authority is second only to the trail boss. He is often surly, his temper as hot as the coals of his fire, but his importance is undeniable. He is not just the cook. He is the camp doctor, the dentist, the barber, the banker, and the keeper of the crew's morale. His kingdom is the small patch of ground around his wagon, and it is governed by a set of unwritten laws you learn through sharp glances and the gruff corrections of the older hands. You learn never to help yourself to food or coffee. You wait until the cook shouts that the chuck or grub is ready, and then you line up, tin plate in hand. You learn to eat first and talk later. You learn that the coffee pot is always on, but you approach it with a respect bordering on reverence. This coffee, the men joke, is six-shooter coffee, so strong and black it could float a revolver. It is brewed with arbuckles beans, which come in convenient 1-pound bags, so ubiquitous on the trail that most cowboys aren't even aware another brand exists. The food is monotonous, but filling, designed for preservation and calories. Breakfast, eaten before the sun has fully risen, is a plate of whistleberries, beans, and sourdough biscuits, baked fresh in a cast-iron Dutch oven and slathered with lard or bacon grease. You eat quickly, standing or sitting on your bedroll, your lap serving as your table. The day is a long, slow walk. The herd moves at a deliberate pace, only 10 to 12 miles a day, to ensure the cattle can graze as they go and not lose precious weight, for weight is money. As a drag rider, your world is the dust. It coats your bandana, which you wear tied over your nose and mouth, but it still finds its way in, lining your throat with a gritty film. You will be coughing up dirty phlegm for weeks after this drive is over. The midday meal is taken in shifts. Half the crew rides to the wagon, while the other half stays with the herd, ensuring the cattle are never left unattended. The evening meal is the only time for leisure. As the sun sets and the cattle are bedded down for the night, you gather around the fire. The talk is quiet, the men too tired for loud celebration. They play cards, tell stories, or simply stare into the flames, the firelight dancing on their weary, dust-caked faces. You learn other rules of the trail. You never ride ahead of the boss. You never criticize another man's horse. And if a man gets off his horse to open a gate, you always wait for him. To ride off and leave him afoot is one of the gravest sins on the prairie. These are the codes that hold this fragile society together, the unspoken agreements that allow a dozen men to survive for months in the vast, empty wilderness. You have been traveling for weeks, the rhythm of the trail now a familiar ache in your muscles. But then you come to it, the Red River. It is not just another stream to be forded. It is a boundary, the line between the relative familiarity of Texas and the vast, unknown expanse of Indian Territory. The old hands speak of it in low tones, calling it a terror to trail drivers. You ride to the edge of the bank and see why. The water is wide and sullen, the color of rust, churning with a slow, powerful current. Along the banks, you see driftwood lodged high in the trees, a stark reminder of the river's angry potential. And there, near the established crossing at Red River Station, you see them. 5 simple, unmarked graves. A chill runs through you. More trail men have been lost in these waters, you are told, than in all the other rivers combined. This is a place that demands a price for passage. The trail boss has scouted the crossing, but there is no safe way, only a less dangerous one. The crossing begins not with a rush, but with a grim, calculated push. The point riders force the lead steers into the water. They balk, their eyes wide with terror, but the pressure from behind is relentless. They plunge in, and the herd follows, a cascade of horns and hides pouring into the red water. The air erupts in a cacophony of sound, the panicked bellows of thousands of cattle, the shouts of the men, and the deep, hungry roar of the river. You urge your horse into the current. The water is cold and shockingly powerful, pulling at your horse's legs. The animal is tense beneath you, its muscles bunched. It knows the danger. You feel it take short, quick, nervous steps, trying to keep its footing in the treacherous riverbed, a mix of mud and quicksand that can swallow a horse whole, a place that buries its dead. Suddenly, to your left, a horse and rider go down. The current has swept the horse's legs out from under it. For a terrifying moment, the cowboy disappears beneath the churning water and the mass of panicked cattle. Then he surfaces, sputtering, his face a mask of shock, clinging to the mane of his struggling horse. Other riders move to help, creating a barrier against the crushing weight of the herd. The fear is a cold, hard knot in your stomach. It is not the fear of a fight, but the fear of a vast, indifferent force that can kill you without malice, without thought. You focus on your own horse, on keeping it moving, on reaching the far bank. When your horse's hooves finally find solid ground, and you climb, dripping and shaking, onto the northern bank of the Red River, the feeling is not one of triumph. It is one of profound, bone-deep relief. You have crossed. You have survived. You look back at the merciless, red water, and you understand that you have just paid the first great toll of the trail. You are in a new land. The air itself feels different, charged with an unseen presence. This is Indian territory, a vast domain belonging to the tribes relocated here by the government, the Choctaw, the Chickasaw, the Cherokee, and further west, the hunting grounds of the Kiowa and Comanche. You are an intruder here, a trespasser on a massive scale, and you feel it in the way the landscape watches you. The endless prairie is no longer just an empty space. It is someone else's home, and your presence is a disruption. From a distant ridge, you see them. A small party of riders, sitting motionless on their horses, their silhouettes dark against the sky. They are a quiet, constant reminder that you are not alone and not entirely welcome. The trail boss has explained the protocol. Passage through this land requires a toll. It is not a matter for negotiation. It is a cost of doing business, a fee for the grass your cattle consume and the water they drink. Soon, a delegation arrives at the camp. They are not the wild savages of dime novels, but serious men, leaders of their nation, who meet with your trail boss with a quiet dignity. You watch the transaction from a distance. It is not always money that changes hands. Often, it is a payment in beef. The tribal leaders are shrewd judges of livestock. They demand good quality steers, not the sick or lame, knowing that their people depend on this food to supplement the meager and unreliable government rations. An older cowboy beside you explains the reasoning in a low voice. Your herd, a moving plague of locusts, devours the grass and muddies the water sources, disrupting the delicate ecosystem. You are grazing on land that once supported the great buffalo herds, now all but vanished, hunted to near extinction. The toll is a form of restitution, a pragmatic tax on the resources you are consuming. You learn that the relationship is more complex than simple hostility. Some tribes, like the Cherokee, have begun leasing vast tracts of their land, like the Cherokee Outlet, to cattle associations for grazing, earning what the cowboys call grass money. Leaders like the Comanche chief Quanah Parker have become savvy businessmen, negotiating deals and building friendships with the very cattlemen who are transforming their world. And among your own crew, you see the faces of this complex history. Perhaps a quarter to a third of all the cowboys on the trails are of African American, Mexican, or Native American descent, men for whom this hard life on the open range offers a degree of freedom and opportunity they cannot find elsewhere. Yet the tension is always there, a low hum beneath the surface. You hear stories of trail bosses who refuse to pay, of small-scale raids on the herds, of conflicts that can flare into violence with little warning. You are crossing a land in the midst of a profound and painful transformation, and your trail drive is both a symptom and a cause of that change. You are not just moving cattle. You are participating in the slow, relentless erosion of a way of life. The trail stretches on, and you enter the heart of the great prairie. Here, the world is reduced to three elements: the endless grass, the immense sky, and the slow, relentless movement of the herd. For days on end, the horizon is a perfect, unbroken circle around you, a vast, empty bowl that seems to press down on your spirit. The French explorers who first saw this place called it a meadow, but you understand now why the settlers who followed called it an ocean of grass. It is a landscape that staggers the psyche, a void so profound it leaves too much room for a mind to wander. The sun beats down from a sky that offers no shade, no comfort. The only sounds are the constant, soft whisper of the wind through the bluestem and grama grass, the incessant hum of insects, the rhythmic creak of your saddle leather, and the hypnotic, shuffling tramp of thousands of hooves. A new kind of hardship begins to settle in, one that is not of the body, but of the mind. It is a profound and nauseating loneliness. You are surrounded by a dozen other men, yet you feel utterly, completely alone. The work is a drudgery of repetition, the conversation sparse and functional. There is nothing to look at, nothing to mark your progress save the slow crawl of the sun. You are a tiny, insignificant speck in a landscape that is indifferent to your existence. This, you realize, is the brutal reality behind the myth of the rugged individualist. It is not a heroic choice to stand alone. It is a condition imposed upon you by the sheer, overwhelming scale of your surroundings. You feel yourself, as one writer would later describe it, confined entirely within the solitude of your own heart. The men have their ways of fighting it. They tell crude, raunchy jokes to break the monotony. They hold stag dances around the campfire, awkwardly waltzing with each other in a clumsy parody of a life left far behind. And they sing. You find yourself humming old tunes under your breath, simple melodies that feel like a small shield against the immense silence. The loneliness is a physical presence, a gnawing, chronic disease without any redeeming features. It is a constant, invisible pressure that wears you down as surely as the sun and the dust. You understand now that the greatest wilderness you must cross is not the one made of grass and sky, but the one that exists inside your own mind. The brutality of the West is not always in its sudden violence, but in its slow, grinding, and soul-crushing emptiness. You are shaken awake in the deep of the night. It is your turn for the night herd. The camp is asleep, the only light and sound coming from the soft crackle of the dying embers of the cook's fire. You pull on your boots, saddle your night horse a steady, reliable mount chosen for its calm demeanor, and ride out from the small circle of warmth and into the immense, cool darkness of the prairie. Your partner for the 2-hour shift is already out there, a ghostly shape moving slowly on the far side of the herd. You begin your own circuit, riding in the opposite direction, a slow, deliberate patrol around the perimeter of a sleeping city. The herd is a vast, dark, breathing mass on the plain. In the faint starlight, you can see the shapes of them, packed together for warmth and security. You can hear the soft, wet sounds of them chewing their cud, the deep sighs and occasional snorts of their slumber. The air is cool and clean, a welcome respite from the dust of the day. But the silence is absolute, a heavy blanket that seems to absorb all sound. And in that silence, fear can breed. The cattle are nervous creatures, prone to panic at the slightest unfamiliar sound, the snap of a twig, the distant howl of a coyote, the scent of a predator on the wind. A single spooked steer can trigger a stampede that could destroy the herd and kill the men trying to control it. And so, you begin to sing. It is not a performance, not for entertainment. It is one of the most practical and important tools of your trade. You sing a night herding song, a slow, mournful lullaby, or a few quiet verses of the old Chisholm Trail. Your voice is low and steady, a continuous, monotonous drone. The purpose is to create a familiar, non-threatening sound that blankets the herd, calming their nerves and masking the small, sudden noises of the night that might otherwise cause a panic. The song tells them that a human is here, that all is well, that they are safe to sleep. But the song is also for you. It is a way to mark the slow passage of time, a way to keep yourself awake and alert. It is a small human sound pushed out into the vast, non-human darkness, a fragile barrier against the oppressive silence and the deep, creeping loneliness of the midnight prairie. You ride and you sing, your eyes constantly scanning the darkness, your ears straining to catch any sound that is not your own voice or the soft breathing of the herd. You are a guardian, a sentinel, projecting a sense of calm that you yourself do not truly feel. Your quiet song, a shield against the ever-present threat of chaos. The night air, once calm and cool, grows heavy and electric. A storm is coming. In the distance, a flicker of lightning silently illuminates the clouds. The cattle stir restlessly. The low, mournful tune you have been humming catches in your throat. Then it comes a deafening crack of thunder that seems to split the sky, followed by a brilliant, blinding flash of lightning that turns the entire prairie stark white for a terrifying second. In that instant, you see a sea of 1,000 horned heads snapping up, eyes wide with primal fear. Before the thunder has finished echoing, you hear it. It begins as a low rumbling noise along the ground, a vibration that travels through your horse and up your spine. In a heartbeat, it grows into a deafening roar, the sound of 10,000 hooves hitting the earth at once. The entire herd, 2,500 head of cattle, has exploded into motion, a single, mindless entity of pure panic. A stampede. There is no time for thought, no time for orders. Your body reacts on pure instinct and adrenaline. You wheel your horse, digging your spurs into its flanks, and you ride. You are not riding away from the danger. You are riding directly towards its heart. The goal, as the old hands have drilled into you, is not to stop the stampede. That would be like trying to stop an avalanche. The goal is to get to the front, to the leaders, and turn them, to force the head of this charging river of flesh into a mill, a tight, frantic circle, before the herd scatters for miles across the dark prairie. You are riding at a dead run in the pitch black, trusting your horse's senses more than your own. The ground beneath you is a minefield of unseen dangers, steep-sided gullies, prairie dog holes that could snap a horse's leg, thickets of thorny mesquite. The air is a maelstrom of sound and sensation. The thunder of hooves, the crashing of brush, the sharp, terrifying rattle of horns clashing together, the wind screaming past your ears. Your horse is no longer just a horse, and you are no longer just a man. You are one creature, a centaur forged of desperation and fear, moving as one. You feel the chilling thought, clear as a bell amidst the chaos, that the next jump could land you and your horse in a shallow, unmarked grave. You push on, leaning low over your horse's neck, shouting into the storm, a tiny, desperate force trying to impose a sliver of human will onto a massive, overwhelming wave of pure animal terror. This is the ultimate test of the trail, a moment of brutal, violent chaos where the very animals you have sworn to protect have become the instrument of your potential destruction. Dawn breaks, gray and weeping, on a scene of quiet devastation. The storm has passed, but the chaos of the night remains. The herd is gone, scattered across miles of open prairie. The day and the days that follow are a blur of grueling work. You ride from sunup to sundown, your body screaming with exhaustion, searching for lost cattle. You find them in small, frightened bunches, or as single, lonely figures on the horizon. Some you find dead, their bodies broken from the frantic run or mired in the mud of a rain-swollen creek. Each lost animal is a palpable loss, a deduction from the trail boss's profits and from your own meager pay. A heavy cloud of failure and fatigue settles over the camp. But the lost cattle are not the only casualties. One of the other young cowboys, a boy you shared a joke with just 2 nights before, was thrown during the stampede. His horse stumbled in the dark, and he went down hard. His leg is broken, a jagged piece of bone pushing against the skin of his thigh. There is no doctor here, no surgeon 100 miles in any direction. His medical care falls to the cook, whose knowledge comes not from school, but from grim, practical experience. You watch, your stomach churning, as the crude surgery begins. There is no concept of sanitation, no thought of sterile technique. The cook cleans the wound with whiskey from his personal stash, the same liquid he pours down the injured man's throat as the only available anesthetic. The boy's moans are a low, constant counterpoint to the cook's grimly focused work. The leg is set with splints fashioned from the wood of a broken supply crate, bound tightly with strips of leather. You are forced to confront the brutal reality of injury on the trail. Your body is your only true asset, and there is no safety net. A fall from a horse can be a death sentence, whether from the fall itself or from being dragged, one foot caught in a stirrup. A rattlesnake bite, a bout of dysentery from drinking foul water, even a simple toothache can fester and become a life-threatening infection in this environment. The chuckwagon's first aid kit contains little more than bandages, some quinine for fever, and perhaps a few patent medicines, concoctions of alcohol, opium, or even mercury, their curative powers dubious and their potential for harm immense. The injured cowboy is moved to the bumpy, unforgiving bed of the chuckwagon, his future uncertain. He is no longer a productive hand, but a liability. You realize with a cold certainty that survival here is not just about enduring hardship, but about avoiding any mishap that would render you helpless, at the mercy of crude remedies and the cold calculus of the trail. The trail boss gathers the crew. He points to the horizon, a flat, shimmering line that seems to vibrate in the heat. He warns of the country ahead, a waterless plain, an 80-mile stretch of sun-baked earth with no rivers, no creeks, not even a reliable spring. This is a landscape reminiscent of the dreaded Llano Estacado, the staked plains, a place that has broken men and destroyed herds. The water barrels on the chuckwagon are full, but the water is strictly rationed, reserved for the men. The cattle will have to endure. The journey becomes a slow, walking torture. The sun is a physical weight, a relentless hammer beating down on you from a bleached, white sky. The air is perfectly still, thick with a heat that shimmers above the ground. The dust your horse kicks up is no longer cool and damp, but fine and hot, like ash, coating your tongue and throat. Your world shrinks to a collection of agonizing physical sensations. Your lips crack and bleed. Your throat feels like it has been scoured with sandpaper. You begin to dream of water, to see mirages of cool, clear lakes on the horizon that dissolve into heat waves as you approach. The work becomes mechanical, your mind dulled by the heat and the crushing monotony. The only thing that changes is the position of the sun, its agonizingly slow crawl across the sky, marking the passage of another hour of misery. You watch the cattle. They suffer with you. Their heads hang low. Their walking becomes a slow, painful shuffle. Their lowing, once a constant rumble, becomes a hoarse, desperate, croaking sound. You see the stronger ones, and the weaker ones, begin to falter. They stumble, fall to their knees, and do not get up again. There is nothing to be done. You must ride past them, leaving them for the wolves and the vultures, and push the rest of the herd onward. Every steer that falls is a loss of money, but on this plain, survival is the only currency that matters. The desperation becomes a tangible thing in the air. You see a man dismount and press his face to the ground, trying to drink the last drops of muddy water from a day-old hoofprint. You understand his desperation completely. The hierarchy of the trail dissolves in the face of this shared, primal need. Man and beast are no longer master and charge. You are fellow sufferers, a single, collective organism being slowly baked and dehydrated by the indifferent land. When after what feels like an eternity, you finally smell the damp earth and see the line of cottonwoods that marks a river ahead, the feeling is not joy. It is a raw, animalistic relief so profound it is almost painful. You have crossed the waterless plain. You have been tested by fire, and now you have been tested by thirst, and you have, somehow, endured. There is a halt at midday, a rare moment of stillness. The cattle graze listlessly in the heat, and the men seek what little shade they can find beneath the chuckwagon. You take this quiet moment to tend to your gear, and as you do, you begin to understand it, not as a collection of possessions, but as a system of purpose-built tools, each one honed by necessity for survival in this brutal world. Your saddle is your most valuable possession, more valuable than your horse, which is owned by the outfit. You run a hand over the worn leather. It is your office, your workbench, your only chair. You trace its anatomy, understanding its function. The high, curved cantle at the back provides support, keeping you from sliding off during a sudden stop or a rough ride. The pommel, the swell at the front, and the sturdy horns serve as an anchor, a place to dally your rope when holding a struggling steer, and a handhold for balance and stability. You feel the solid structure of the saddle tree. Beneath the leather, the foundation that distributes your weight evenly across the horse's back, a marvel of engineering that protects both of you from the pain and injury of spending 16 hours a day together. The wide leather fenders hang down, protecting your legs from the horse's sweat and the constant friction of the stirrup leathers. You inspect your chaps, or shaps, as the old hands pronounce it. They are the shotgun style, simple, straight-legged tubes of thick cowhide. You think of the dense thickets of mesquite and catclaw you've ridden through, thorns that would have shredded denim and flesh to ribbons. These chaps are your armor, your protection against the thousand sharp things that want to tear at you, from cactus spines to the fangs of a rattlesnake. Then there is the simple bandana tied around your neck. It is the most versatile tool you own. In the choking dust of the drag, it is your mask. When you have a cold, it is your handkerchief, a snot rag. In a pinch, it is a bandage for a cut, a tourniquet, or a sling. When you find a muddy waterhole, you can use it as a filter to strain out the worst of the grit. It is a pot holder, a signal flag, and a shield against the relentless sun. Finally, you check the coil of your lariat, the rope the Spanish called la riata. You feel its stiffness, the satisfying weight in your hand. It is not just any rope. It is made of tightly braided nylon or polyester, stiff enough for the loop, or Honda, to stay open when you throw it. It is an extension of your arm, a tool of incredible precision. With it, you can catch a stray calf for branding, pull a steer from a bog, or even help drag the chuckwagon out of a muddy creek bed. Every piece of your gear, you realize, tells a story of a problem solved. There is no decoration, no flourish for its own sake. It is a material culture born of pure function, a testament to a life stripped down to its bare, practical essentials. You smell it first. A sharp, acrid scent on the wind, different from the usual smells of dust and cattle. It is the smell of burning grass. Then you see it. On the far northern horizon, a low, angry orange glow is visible beneath a spreading pall of dark smoke. An older cowboy next to you spits on the ground. "Prairie fire," he says, his voice flat and grim. The trail boss has seen it too. He gallops to the front of the crew, his voice sharp and clear, cutting through the afternoon haze. There are no wasted words. The fire is moving fast, driven by a strong southerly wind, rolling across the dry prairie with the speed of a racehorse. The distant glow quickly grows into a visible wall of flame, a roaring, rushing, crackling monster that seems to devour the horizon. The flames leap 30, 40 feet into the air, and you can begin to feel the heat on your face, even from a mile away. The air itself feels hot, like the blast of a furnace. There is no outrunning it. The only hope is to fight it, and the only way to fight a prairie fire is with fire itself. The boss gives the order for a backfire. It is a desperate, counterintuitive strategy. You must burn a wide patch of grass ahead of the main inferno, creating a black, barren firebreak that will starve the larger fire of its fuel. The crew springs into action with a practiced, frantic efficiency. Half the men, you among them, begin herding the terrified cattle, pushing them towards a low-lying area that will be the designated safety zone. The other half become firefighters. They ride along a designated line, dragging lit torches of oil-soaked rags, setting the grass ablaze. It feels like madness to be starting another fire, but it is a controlled burn. As the new fire spreads, men follow behind with wet sacks and blankets, beating at the edges of the flames to keep it from getting out of control, to shape it into the barrier that will save you. The world becomes a hellish scene of smoke and heat. The smoke is thick and blinding, stinging your eyes and choking your lungs. The roar of the approaching inferno is a constant, deafening presence. The cattle are nearly uncontrollable with fear, their bellows of terror mixing with the crackle and rush of the flames. You work in a state of heightened, adrenaline-fueled focus, your body screaming from the heat and the effort. You are no longer just a cowboy. You are part of a desperate, disciplined team battling one of nature's most terrifying and destructive forces. You are not trying to endure it or redirect it. You are trying to outsmart it, using its own destructive power against itself in a high-stakes gamble for survival. The dangers of the trail are not always born of nature. Sometimes they ride a horse and watch you from a distance. You are riding flank, keeping the edge of the herd tight when you notice them. A small group of 4 or 5 men sitting on their horses on a nearby rise. They are not traveling. They are watching. Their presence is a quiet, unsettling weight on the vast, open landscape. The trail boss sees them too. He rides out to meet them, not with aggression, but with a calm, steady posture that radiates authority. 2 of your most experienced hands follow him, staying a respectful distance behind. There is no shouting, no grand confrontation like in the dime novels. The conversation is too far away for you to hear. A low murmur on the wind, but you can feel the tension in the air like a gathering storm. An old hand riding near you explains who they are. They could be rustlers, waiting for a dark, rainy night to start a stampede so they can cut out 100 of your best steers in the confusion. Or they could be bunch cutters, men who will ride into your herd and claim, with false brands or bold-faced lies, that some of your cattle are their own strays that have gotten mixed in. In this lawless land, possession is everything, and a trail boss's nerve is his primary defense. Your crew is tense. Hands rest casually on the grips of their 6-shooters, but no one makes a move to draw. This is not a battle of bullets, but a battle of wills, a psychological test of strength and resolve. Your trail boss is a rock. He does not yield, does not show a flicker of fear or uncertainty. He knows his brand, he knows his men, and he projects an aura of absolute confidence that he will defend his herd to the last. After a long, tense standoff, the other men seem to reach an unspoken conclusion. They wheel their horses and ride away, melting back into the prairie. The immediate threat has passed, but a new kind of awareness settles over you. The old hand tells you a story from a previous drive of a confrontation that did turn violent. A bunch cutter who wouldn't back down, a trail boss who had to use his heavy cow whip to drive the man from the herd, and the man's partners who drew knives before another cowboy stood them off with his pistol. You realize that the brutality of this world is not always loud and chaotic like a stampede or a prairie fire. Sometimes it is a quiet, simmering threat, a constant pressure from other desperate men who see your herd not as a testament to your hard work, but as an opportunity for their own gain. The law here is what you can enforce, and survival depends on a nerve as hard as iron. You have been traveling for what feels like a lifetime. The landscape, which was once an unchanging sea of grass, begins to show subtle signs of a different world approaching. First, you see a sod house, a dark, lonely square cut into the prairie, a testament to some farmer's stubborn hope. Then you see another. And then you see it, the thing that the older cowboys speak of with a mix of resentment and resignation. It is a fence. A line of wooden posts strung with the devil's rope. Barbed wire. It is a simple, almost flimsy-looking thing, but it represents a change so profound it feels like the world is being remade before your eyes. The open range, the vast, unfenced ocean that allowed cattle to drift for 100 miles, is being carved up, divided, and tamed. The trail, which once felt as boundless as the sky, is now being funneled into corridors, channeled between the property lines of unseen owners. The older hands fall quiet as you ride past the fences. They have seen the future, and it does not include them. They talk in low tones around the campfire of the fence-cutter wars, of the violent conflicts between the cattlemen, who depended on the open range, and the homesteaders and ranchers, who were fencing it off. They talk of a freedom that is vanishing, a way of life that is being strangled by a few strands of sharp metal. Then you hear it, a sound that is alien to the natural world of the prairie. It is a long, lonely whistle, carried on the wind from miles away. It is the sound of a steam locomotive. It is the sound of the railroad. For months, that sound has been your destination, the entire purpose of this grueling journey. The railroad is the artery that connects this remote wilderness to the hungry cities of the East. The magical machine that will transform these cattle, worth a mere $4 or $5 a head back in Texas, into a $40 prize at the Kansas railhead. It is the engine of the entire cattle boom. But as you listen to its distant call, you understand the deep, tragic irony that the old cowboys feel in their bones. The railroad, the very thing that gives this drive its purpose, is also the agent of its doom. It brings the settlers, it brings the farmers, and it brings the barbed wire that is carving up the plains and making the long trail drive obsolete. The world feels smaller now, more crowded. The train whistle is the sound of your paycheck, but it is also the sound of the end of an era. With every mile you travel north, you are riding deeper into a future that has no room for the life you are living. The nights are cooler now as you move north into Kansas. The end of the trail is near. One evening, camped by a small creek, one of the oldest cowboys, a man who has seen more trail drives than you have years, stares deep into the embers of the fire and begins to talk. He speaks of the changes he has seen, of the fences that now scar the land. He tells you that the devil's rope did more than just end the open range. It became an instrument of unimaginable destruction. He tells you about the winter of 1886 and 1887, the winter they call the Big Die-Up. His voice is low and heavy with memory. He describes a long, hot summer that scorched the prairies, leaving the grass thin and the cattle weak as they headed into the fall. The ranges were already overstocked, crowded with too many animals as ranchers, chasing huge profits, had pushed the land to its breaking point. When the first blizzards hit in November, the cattle were already in poor shape. Then came January, a storm of unimaginable fury, a blizzard that dropped temperatures to 50 degrees below zero and buried the plains in feet of snow. He tells you how the cattle, driven by a primal instinct older than man, turned their backs to the biting north wind and began to drift south, seeking shelter in the canyons and river valleys. But this time, their path was blocked. They ran headlong into the new drift fences, the lines of barbed wire stretching for hundreds of miles. The wire held. The cattle, unable to go forward, began to pile up against the fences in a desperate, struggling mass. They huddled together for warmth, but there was no escape. They died in their thousands, smothered by the crush of the herd or frozen solid in their tracks. He describes the spring thaw, a sight so horrific it broke the hardest of men. For miles and miles along the fence lines, the carcasses were piled as high as a man on horseback. An LX ranch hand, he says, skinned 250 carcasses for every mile along a 35-mile stretch of fence. The rotting bodies clogged the rivers, poisoning the water for what was left of the herds. Ranchers lost everything, with some outfits reporting losses as high as 75 or even 90%. The great cattle boom was over, wiped out in a single brutal winter. The old man looks at you, his eyes reflecting the fire's dying glow. He tells you that the Big Die-Up proved that the open range way of life was a dream that could not last. The future, he says, is in smaller ranches, in fenced pastures, in growing hay to feed the cattle through the winter. The great, free, wandering life of the trail driver is over. You are riding at the very end of it. You arrive. The trail ends not with a quiet sense of accomplishment, but with a jarring sensory assault. You ride into a Kansas cow town, a place like Abilene or Newton or Dodge City, and the world you have known for months is shattered. The first thing that hits you is the noise. After the immense natural silence of the prairie, The sounds of civilization are a physical blow. The deafening shriek of a train whistle, the rhythmic, metallic clatter of rail cars being shunted on a siding, the constant shouting of men, the tinny, out-of-tune piano music spilling from a saloon. The smell is just as overwhelming. The clean scent of grass and earth is replaced by a thick, industrial miasma of coal smoke, cheap whiskey, unwashed bodies, and the pungent, eye-watering odor of thousands of cattle packed tightly into the sprawling stockyards by the tracks. You and the crew push your herd, the animals you have lived with and cared for and feared for 1,000 miles, into the wooden pens. The gate slams shut behind the last steer, and just like that, it is over. The single driving purpose that has defined every waking moment of your life for the past 3 months is gone. A strange feeling of emptiness settles over you, a profound dislocation. You are a cowboy without a herd to drive. The trail boss, his work not yet finished, goes to negotiate the sale with the cattle buyers. Later, he returns and pays the crew. You hold the wages in your hand, 90, maybe $100 in worn bills and heavy coin, the physical proof of your endurance. For some of the men who took advances or have debts, it is almost nothing, a few dollars in a pocket that will be empty by morning. You watch as the other cowboys, released from the trail's discipline, descend upon the town. They are loud and boisterous, their pent-up energy exploding in a wave of drinking, gambling, and fighting. They are looking to wash the trail dust from their throats and forget the hardships in a blur of cheap whiskey and fleeting pleasure. But you find you have no taste for it. You find a quiet spot away from the main thoroughfare, perhaps on a stack of lumber near the tracks, and you just sit. You feel the solid, unmoving ground beneath you, a sensation that is both comforting and strange. You are not the same person who signed on for this journey. The boy who was afraid of the dust and the dark is gone. In his place is a man who has faced down stampedes and prairie fires, who has known profound loneliness and the simple, fierce joy of survival. The dust of the Chisholm Trail feels like it is ground into your very bones, and the memory of the vast, brutal, and beautiful landscape is now a permanent part of your soul. You survived, and in surviving, you have been forever changed. And so, the journey comes to its close. The sharp, chaotic edges of the cow town begin to soften and blur in your mind, the loud noises fading into a distant, gentle hum. The memory of the trail itself, with all its hardship and its terror, the suffocating dust, the biting cold of the river, the searing heat of the waterless plain, all of it recedes, leaving behind only the quiet, rhythmic echo of the long ride. You feel the immense weight of your exhaustion, but it is a deep and satisfying weariness, the kind of soul-deep fatigue that promises a profound and truly peaceful rest. The vast, open prairie, once a place of daunting loneliness, transforms in your memory into a quiet, empty space, a silent, peaceful canvas upon which your story was written. The image of the herd, that great river of life, begins to fade from view. The sound of the night song, once a shield against the darkness, softens to a barely audible whisper on the edge of sleep. The last embers of the campfire glow warmly for a moment, and then, one by one, they wink out, leaving behind only the comforting, peaceful, and silent dark. And now, there is only the stillness and the deep, quiet peace of solid ground